Hi everyone, welcome on Unofficial. Today I have amazing people with myself. It's Peter and Abraham. Yes, everyone, it's Abraham. It's the guy who invented the B2C CRM thing as we know as of today. Of course, he will challenge my words right now and tell me that it was a teamwork. But for me, honestly, he is the hero out of there. We will talk today about Customer 360. What is behind the Customer 360? What means multi-cloud strategies, and what does it mean for developers, architects, and technical leads? All these maybe buzzwords, or maybe not a buzzwords. But anyway, let's go to Abraham. What about you? Can you introduce yourself and just tell whoever doesn't know you, what are you doing and what's your background?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Oleg. First, Oleg and Peter, hello. It's good to see you guys. My name is Abraham Lloyd. I'm the Vice President of Product at 1440.io. We're a Salesforce ISV partner that produces a number of products targeting customers within the Salesforce ecosystem. I am most recently of Salesforce. I worked at Salesforce for about 4.5 years. And last was the director for the B2C Solution Architect program. And so, the timing is interesting, right? Like you were catching me. I think this is week 5 of my new role. And so that's been a really interesting and amazing journey so far.
Cool. That's interesting. So what do you think about Customer 360 in general? Is it a buzzword? What does it mean for customers to have Customer 360? What does it mean for developers when he hear Customer 360?
Well, I think you have to look at it. You have to look at it two ways, right? Like I feel like Customer 360, instead of it being a thing, you should really think about it like a goal, right? Like it is. It is like really, really tight language that says that, look, I want to understand my customer, all the things that are important to my customer and also important to me as a brand or a company. To me, that's like what I think Customer 360 is. Now, where this gets muddy is when you start to think about data and you start to think as a developer, where it's like, well, I'm one person. So I should probably only have one record, right? But that's not the reality of today. And this is like one of the things I want to impart about this. When you think about developing 360 applications or applications that leverage or produce a 360 view of your customer, you have to remember two things. The first is that customers transact or engage across multiple channels, right? Like, Oleg, how many cell phones do you have, or Twitter handles, or social handles do you have, right? Every one of these is a channel, an email address, a phone number, a Twitter handle. Depending on what you're leveraging, you're going to interact or represent yourself in a different way. And that is solely by your design, right? No company gets to really control that. You get to control how you conduct business or interface with a brand. And so because you control this as a customer, as a consumer, as a human being, why would I as a company think that I could mash all that up into one record and then tie everything that you do with like the brands that I manage or the companies that I own to that one record? Right. This is the science problem that, yeah, you could kind of do this maybe, right? But the effort that you're going to expend trying to make this real is going to be prohibitive. And so this is why in the B2C Solution Architect program, and even in my work at 1440, we anchor on this idea that, listen, customers engage across multiple channels. Every one of these channels, they have a profile that they're in control of or the master of. You have to be a subscriber of that. But what you should do is try to build experiences that allow you to relate these profiles together so that you can reconcile that this Twitter handle, this Facebook account, this Instagram account, and this LinkedIn page, and this email address, and this phone number represents the same human being. And if you can do that reconciliation, then you've got the foundation of being able to build that 360 view.
Okay, here I actually have a nice story. When I was a student, I was using everywhere my student email. Why? Because I was getting the promotions. I could use JetBrains for free. I could use other stuff for free. So most on my experiences, I was using my student email address over there, right? When I seamlessly, right after finishing my time, right, I got my diploma, I started to register once more time on those services and using my personal one. But I'm the same physical person. I have the same first name. I have the same last name. I use the same phone back then, but I use different emails. The distraction that I felt with experience with those services was that they actually didn't recognize me as the same person. They didn't understand that I'm the same one. So I fully agree with you that as of today, when we usually have, at least I have two phones. I have like my personal, my work one, and you never can just really distinguish between the services. Sometimes I'm doing some stuff online with my work phone, and of course it has my work email, and sometimes I do my personal one. So you cannot have, let's say, the same data. So with that, I have a question. What is then the difference between single customer profile, let's say, right, and single customer view? Because in my understanding, if you say single customer profile, you're trying to merge all the data, maybe not in the one something, like and trying to merge it together and say, okay, this is like unified. Let's resolve. Oh, you have two mobile numbers. No, you just have one, and let's save just one. Or I don't know, different way, right? And customer view, where you actually trying to connect the dots, right? So can you elaborate on this one for those who doesn't really, feel themselves comfortable?
Well, I think all right. So like, if I was going to prioritize these, I would say prioritize the view first, right? Because the view is where you actually get to generate value, and the investments that you need to make to produce that value tend to be predictable, right? So as an example, if I have three profiles, right, and they're separate email addresses, but I have orders attached to each of them, if I can relate those three profiles with another identifier or anchored to some other scheme, I can now aggregate my total lifetime value, right? And I can represent that in a view. So that's a very simple, but it's a very practical example of, look, you don't need to tie everything to one record to create a view that generates value for a business. All right. I think the single customer record. So when I was first starting out in software as a developer, I wanted to say yes to everything, right? Like it was like, oh, I could do this, we could do this, yeah, you could, we can do whatever you want, just trust us, we'll build it. But as I got older, even today, I find myself questioning everything. And so if you wanted a single customer record, the thing I would ask is, what are you going to do with it? Right? How does it generate value for you? Do you really need it? And what I find is that most companies get stuck with that question, right? Because what they really want is they want the outcomes. They want the outcomes or the intelligence that they can then leverage that typically is produced by the views. Now, there are scenarios where you may want a canonical profile or a global profile to say that, like for Oleg, this is his default billing address. This is his default shipping address. This is his home phone, right? And regardless of whether I have a profile that has his address from 3 years ago or a profile with his current address, using matching and AI, I can infer that, no, this is his home address today, and this is his billing address today, and this is his work phone, and this is his mobile phone. Now, that's great as a reference, right? But if I want to actually do anything with that, I need more data. right? I need to understand what you consented to. I need to understand what I have permission to use, right? I need to know what channel the data came from, because if I'm leveraging data that came from one profile while interfacing with you where you're on another profile, that may be weird, right? Where like think about uh, a woman gets married, changes her name, has updated her last name for one profile, but not updated it for another, right? And now you're interfacing with her through that channel, and you're calling her by her marriage name when that profile is attached to her maiden name, right? Like this is why I say, why do you want to use it? Now, if you're going to use it as a reference, awesome. But if you're going to use it to actually drive customer experience or customer journeys, this is where the context matters. And this is where you do need more data. You need contextual awareness of what you have permission to do and where the data from this global profile came from.
So I was going to say, from a developer's perspective, I think I've used Customer 360 for my first year working at the company with Red Van here. And yeah, that exactly what you just said was a use case for one of our clients, because they had one person could be multiple roles. And we had, for this specific client, they had a pro account, but they can also technically work at the company. And so it was like they have separate email addresses, and the specific things that we needed to solve was how we display certain things for those different roles and being able to switch between those profiles and inspect that, which wasn't a really super easy thing without that solution being in place, because then we can actually go say, hey, like, what do they see when they're logged in as that person and acting as that role? So then we can actually test things out, make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So that's been my experience with the software. It's been pretty good stuff.
You actually reminded me about another story in my experience. It was about online and offline. I'm a person, I can go to the physical store, buy some stuff, and usually they will ask, oh, what is your phone number? And you just give phone number, like, okay, cool. Then you go to the website and you can fill out your phone number and maybe some number from the check, from the receipt, right? And then you can see your order online. Sometimes they give you this capability. But then we worked with a customer that actually went further, and he said, okay, I have customers' phone numbers, right? I already have this identity, but I also gathering his phone number on online experience. Why I cannot go in his order history and just show him online orders and offline orders? And customer will be able to unify. He will know, okay, I bought something offline. I just go and log into my online account. I go in over there. And as a Commerce Cloud developer, you don't really think about this, but there is a system out there that making reconciliation, it will connect this customer. So when then I send in my customer ID to that system, telling, hey, I'm Commerce Cloud, this is my customer, do you have something for me? And they're like, yeah, we do, this is your order history, this is our customer, we know who it is, right? And you get in here. And then with that, I remember like how good that experience was. And right now in Australia, like I'm using I use IKEA to buy some stuff over here. And experience was awful. If anyone from IKEA listen to me right now, guys, it's not okay. I'm logging in my account. I want to see order history. And you are forcing me all the time to fill out order ID for each online order to see the order details. I already logged in. Show me my orders. Show me my online orders. Show me my offline orders. It's a mess. I don't like to buy anymore from there because I don't like experience. Even that I like quality per price, I'm not going in there because I don't like experience. So I feel that it's like this unified view when you can connect the customer and give him simplest vision of his activities, data, what he did, so he can maybe buy something new, or maybe just he wants to analyze something, the prices over there. This is like very important. Okay.
Oh, look, I agree. One thing I want to add super quick is I love Salesforce research. All right, if you go to salesforce.com/research, Salesforce produces a number of white papers and industry specific reports that highlight exactly, Oleg, the experience that you just called out, right? And so you can look at the state of commerce, or the state of marketing, the state of service, the state of the connected customer is my favorite report, because it tends to be more experience driven than cloud or industry driven. But this is a trend that's been going on for years now, that the minute I get a really great experience, I use that experience to measure how the other brands in my life are succeeding or failing. And the ones that don't live up to, this new bar, right? And hey, IKEA, I'm looking at you right now. Guess what? I am open to a new brand to take that place. So it's good stuff. I empathize. I feel like this is one of the things that's changing coming out of the pandemic, is that consumers today are going to have the expectation that, hey, if I'm walking into a store, you should still know me. This idea that, like, when I walk into the store, I'm a different person from who I am when I'm online, but is disappearing.
Not quite related, but another experience that I had was with 3PLs, like with the shipping companies. When I'm getting email like, your order shipping ID is the following for the order, and no information about the order. And you're like, what, the order? I was buying so much. Guys, give me a context. Give me whatever is going over there. And with that, why I wanted to hit this one, because I think it's potentially one, even IKEA maybe doesn't have it. Maybe it's the challenges with the data and flows. I mean, maybe it's too complex.
I think what you find is that when experiences fall short, so look, delivery's hard, right? Like, look, IKEA, you have my empathy, right? Like, multinational, multi-billion-dollar company, you guys have a lot of data and a lot of systems. Tying this stuff together is super, super complex. And look, we're driven by deadlines, right? And wanting to generate business value. And there's always this slippery slope of, well, I can't quite do it the way that I want to do it, but will you settle for this, right? And that tends to be an experience that is subpar, but at least exposes the data, or in some clumsy way, right? Like Oleg, like asking you for order numbers, right? You have a vehicle to actually look at it, but it's inconvenient for you, but it probably addressed someone's success criteria on a JIRA ticket somewhere.
JIRA ticket, yeah, somewhere. Yo,
let's start it now.
I never thought we would troll IKEA, right? That wasn't on my list. So IKEA.
Yeah, I know. I like them. It's just, all my stuff in my home are from there. I wouldn't choose the brand if I wouldn't love them. It just,
this bookshelf is from IKEA. This is a bookshelf that we put on its side.
Awesome.
I guess maybe it's false in expectations when you work in the industry and you know how all the best in the markets, what they are doing to provide very good experience. You already defining some high expectations. You're like, you simplifying the things because okay, it's not that complex anymore. I can have my CRM, let's say it's Salesforce CRM, right? I can have my person account. I can see my clients over there, the data. So if I have a call center, they will use Salesforce platform. They will see the customers. I can pull their orders. So I can use Salesforce order management that will get from the portal all the orders. I can see what customers bought, right? I can use B2C CRM thing to synchronize the customer. So I can see his latest data. If I have Commerce Cloud with the portal and I also using Loyalty Cloud, I can connect them and then I can provide this 360 view. And on top of this is Marketing Cloud, how I can drive experiences, right? So if I know all these toolings and I know how good experience can be, it's, I guess, you're just defining too high expectations, right? But today, yeah.
No, like I'm with you, right? Because like what you're really saying here is that, listen, this is possible. Like, we shouldn't act like this is not possible, right? It takes money, it takes resources, it takes time. But the technology is there for these experiences to be seamless. There's still complexity, right? Especially when you go international and you're dealing with multiple geographies and data residency, right? This makes things harder because it ends up informing what your data model is, very weirdly, but practically. And so this is something that I have empathy for companies, especially after leaving Salesforce, because you know what? Like, it is hard to maximize the value of technology investments, right? It is hard to always produce stuff that, that turns into magical experiences that, delight customers and produce loyalty. Like it takes technology, it takes skill, it takes experience, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes experimentation. Right? I'm with you. It's challenging. Like
Yeah,
companies,
I would.
like if you're a company out there, you have my empathy. This stuff is hard.
Yeah, I would even say that sometimes with these companies, in my experience, before I got into Salesforce, I've been doing product development for some international companies throughout for probably about 20 years. And one of the biggest issues they have is just legacy infrastructure, where they've just got old. In this situation, it can be almost two things. It's like legacy infrastructure where it's almost impossible to like integrate new third-party services that provide these solutions because their stuff's just so archaic that it would basically require like starting from scratch, which they can't always do. The other thing is that sometimes international law with or their internal policies for moving customer data, like an email address and a phone number and stuff like that, sometimes they can't even do that. Like they can do something within the United States, but they can't then go to the EU or other countries and take that same data. And those customers are sometimes international. Now what do you do? So those situations become super sticky for them, and it's really hard to find a solution. So I totally feel for like somebody like yeah that's not going to be able to do that always. So it's not easy.
It's a good example because let's look on China, right? If you want to do business in China, you need to have all the data service in China. You need to store all the data over there, and you cannot move it out. Even this good industry example is telecommunications. If you do the business in telco, you need to store the data in those countries, like in Japan, right? For example, if you do anything over there, you need to have all the data servers over there. You cannot expose them. So even if I'm a user, I'm like I did, right? I moved from Japan to Australia and I want to use some services over there. My data is stored in Japan. So
Yeah.
how you actually, right? They cannot migrate it here. I actually use even the credit card from Revolut, and they are a global company, right? And I had an account in Japan, and I moved here. I know they also had an account over here, and I was like, "Can you just migrate it? I mean, to Australia?" It's like, just do it.
No.
Like, and they no, because as you said, Peter, regulations sometimes block us just to move the data. I'm the same person, but I had to close my account over there and open a new one over here. Some stuff you just cannot migrate, right?
Yeah, look, that's reality.
And we talked about the challenges. And I have a question. Let's say I'm a persona, I'm Commerce Cloud developer or technical lead, right? What does it mean for me, this customer 360? I don't know other systems. I don't know MDM. I don't know other stuff, right? What is the value for me in terms of knowing this? How this can impact my day-to-day work? I have my own assumptions, but it would be great, Abraham, if you can just bring some light in terms of that one, and then maybe we can discuss a bit about this.
So like, I think this is armor, right? And that's how I think of it. So as a developer, as a technical lead, as an architect, as a line of business owner, right? As a manager, I feel like you have to align to this, even minimally, this idea that, listen, customers have different profiles. These profiles are used to engage through different channels. Sometimes these channels merge, sometimes they overlap, sometimes they're completely separate and distinct, but they're always, they're one, always owned by the customer, and two, because they're owned by the customer, you have to respect the integrity of the data through this channel, right? And so this gets back to my on Facebook, on LinkedIn, my first name is Abraham. On Facebook, my first name is Abe. On Twitter, my first name is Abe, right? And before I got married on my dating site, my first name was Baberham. I'm just kidding. I never had that. All right. But this, right, I have the ability to control how my name is referenced, right? So look, I think you have to align to that, and understand that and respect that just as a rule, right? Because the minute you try to do, and I've seen this, and I've had this discussion, I don't know how many times, about like, well, no, I just want to get it into one record, or what should I do to try and merge these? I always come back to why. What do you get? What do you get out of this, right? Like, and this is the thing, and this is why, to me, it's armor, because if you understand this, it will protect you from creating technical debt that you know and you don't know exists, right? And this will show up downstream when you're trying to do or solve other problems.
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, the value for me will be to understand why, because behind the why, I can understand, I can brainstorm use cases, I can see what can happen, how I need to architecture my data, what kind of flows I have to do. Do I need to make everything asynchronous, or maybe it should be asynchronous and synchronous, because not all the systems are live all the time, right? So I need to have different flows. Then I will see what data structure I have to do, what business rules I have to codify, and how I have to build my permissions. So for, let's say,
or even consent, right? Think about consent, right? If you understand that, hey, I've got different profiles and customers are going to interact, I don't want a complex, super custom consent model, right? I want to have some consistency of consent so that it's easy for me to say, can I do this? Tell me what channels I can do this thing in, right? And then make choices about how I choose to interact with a customer, or how I choose to leverage their data. So yeah, look, for me, why, everything starts with why. I find, do you guys watch Ted Lasso, the TV show? All right. So
yep.
All right, Apple Plus, I love you guys because you introduced Ted Lasso to my life. There's a great line that is quoted in one of the shows, right? And he's talking, so Ted is a football coach, an American football coach that is a football manager in London for a Premier League team, out of nowhere, all right? I won't divulge any more of the plot, but he's explaining how he's been underestimated his whole life, and he never understood why until he was an adult. And it hit him with a line, a quote that he read by Walt Whitman said, be curious, do not be judgmental, right? And this speaks to the whole point of why the word why is so important, right? Because if you start with why, you can be curious about what is the right solution, as opposed to practicing judgment, which is, no, this is what we're going to do, even though I may not be grounded in, the right outcomes that I'm trying to produce. And so I love, Oleg, I love what you said about why. Why matters, right? This is like my favorite question, or my favorite statement is, I don't know, right? Because I don't know is where you start, right? I don't know is new beginnings and new possibilities. It's not a dead end.
It seems like the why question in your metaphor about armor are also relevant, because in this case, knowing the answer to why would have prevented, in Oleg's case, of not being happy with, in this case, unfortunately, IKEA, and wanting to go someplace else, because the user experience was a pain point. And it was a pain point because, if in this case, if you could have answered why it was a pain point and solved for that, then you would have retained that customer. So, and the armor actually would have protect your business, because you're not actually forcing somebody to have to get so frustrated with what you're providing them that they just end up leaving. So it's actually, you're coming up with solutions for that. It's a good metaphor.
Well, and look, and maybe they're doing it, right? Like, companies have to, every decision matters, right? Every decision, every priority you set It's got to be grounded in something that produces business value. Maybe it was deprioritized in favor of something else that made, that created a delightful experience for customers and did it at greater scale, right? Like I don't know, IKEA, I've got you. But it's, if you can ask why, it does give you, give you the ability to do relative comparisons, right? Whereas if you're just starting with judgments or solutions, like how do you compare the value of one solve versus another, right? Without really being able to articulate, here's why I'm justifying this, right? I love to talk about treasure, right? When we set priorities, it's like, all right, I'm investing time and treasure into this. Why am I spending doubloons? Why am I spending gold coins on this? Explain that to me. I want to understand that clearly. And if I do, here is my treasure chest.
Actually, not related fully to our discussion today, but I would love to go with the question, why you want to go headless to a lot of people? Like, why you going to want headless? That's why it's very good one. And with that, in terms of, with what we discussed logically, I would ask you this way, but B2C CRM thing, right? What does it solve? I mean, I know it was another iteration of trying to solve different business problems. You've been vital, I would say very significant, I don't know, maybe major part of all that happened with other folks, of course. I mean, I'm not, giving all the kudos just to you. Of course, there was a team, but as you are here today, can you tell us and explain what does it mean, this solution to the ecosystem? What does it solve? How it can help customers? What is the value behind it?
All right. So I have to do a little bit of storytelling, and I want to acknowledge a handful of people. All right. The first person I want to acknowledge and say thank you to is Nia Samadi. Nia was my manager when I was at Salesforce. I love and respect Nia. She's a fantastic leader. The company is lucky to have her, and I was lucky to be able to serve and work with her. And the reason why I'm so grateful is that she gave me space to put CRM Sync together and do it with the backing of the B2C Solution Architect program. All right. Now, why we chose to invest in this is that, look, this is a gap. Okay. And there are a couple of needs, right? So Salesforce is a company, markets that these products are integrated, and they are in some ways, but they are not in others, right? So we have integration with order management, but there, in order to really have frictionless customer experiences that support B2C commerce storefronts, have representations of those customers exist in the Salesforce platform, and then be able to carry those representations over to Marketing Cloud so you can activate and engage with customers, and then even bring all that data back up into CDP, right? So you can create the individual view and then build segments. You have to have a data strategy in place that allows you to do all this. And this is not something baked into the platform, right? This isn't something baked into the platform. It's not something baked into the product. And depending on what your architecture is, your data strategy can vary. And so this has been a pain point in our ecosystem for a while. And this was a pain point in the B2C Solution Architect program when we first rolled it out, because we're teaching the data strategy, but we didn't have anything substantive that we could use to actually enable on it in the ecosystem. So it was super theoretical. All right. And so for me, the program rolled out in December, and I said, all right, I want to invest in this, and we need this. And it put me on a journey, primarily as a B2C commerce developer with some experience in the Salesforce platform, of what does a reimagined version of this integration look like, right? Leveraging all contemporary tooling, SFDX, leveraging flow, invocable actions, tons of testing, tons of command line automation. And so as I was going on this, we actually ended up rewriting it 2 times. And I had already had a version of it. Overall, there's 3 rewrites that we did. Okay. Because look, this is super, it was hard, right? Like, I don't know, I can't put it any simpler than that. The idea of a Commerce Cloud SI saying that, hey, we'll build this integration in a sustainable way for you and your business in 4 to 6 weeks with very little experience, understanding the data strategy, understanding the nuances of like person accounts versus accounts and contacts, and other aspects of the Salesforce platform. I don't know how you do it, right? And so it turned into, hey, we need this for our program, and this will also help address this need for customers, to this mission to make life a little better for everybody, right? And have good tooling and have the crazy test coverage. Like I think our Apex test coverage was at 91%. Our B2C commerce test coverage was at like 96%. And getting exposure to just like the metadata API and everything else that we had to do to make this deployable. Look, I'll be honest, I did it, out of empathy and out of love.
This is good. I love when you mentioned like enablement, and I really see it as enablement solution. I love the architecture decision that were made. I love flows. You like flows over there. It's just so cool. You declaratively can expose the APIs outside and use that one whatever way you want. You want to do some, maybe even pull some Apex classes. You can do that, no worries, but it's not mandatory. You can do something just with the flows, and it's declarative. You don't need to be really like developer, no coding to actually extend and change it. I like the way how resolutions of the customers were done, where they also were not codified, right? They also declarative. So you can really configure the way how you want to map your customer and identify it. And the best what I love from there, that the framework, how to connect Commerce Cloud and CRM in general, because under the core, right, the Salesforce mother, let's call it like this, right? Order management, service, sales, and other products. We have now unified connection way. You already have the pattern, how you interact with them in a sync and synchronized way. You have already the service, so you have a trusted connection. You have already pattern how to create new endpoints. I mean, I was in last few days, I was using the solution to extend for some different use cases, not actually contact, just some different one. But it was so easy. You just see, you open the folders and say, okay, service, mocks. Okay, I just need to create the same pattern in a JSON file. I want new endpoint. Okay, let me just add a new line in JSON file. Services, okay, just call a name. It's just few lines. You just create few lines, bam, you have a new endpoint. It's working. Login, automatically working. Login in your new file, and you just see all the logs, what's happening with the debug mode. So it's extendable. When I feel about B2C CRM thing, it's not just connecting and solving business problems for the contacts. It's like initial base framework, how you can connect commerce with the mother Salesforce. I call it mother Salesforce because it's hard to just call Service Cloud. It's all the products under the hood, right? So
no, of course,
core and commerce. It's a good one.
So listen, I wanna shout out everything you just said. You should thank Jordan Bachelet for. Jordan, I love you. None of this happens without you. And then everything you talked about with flows. Eric Schultz, again, I love you. None of this happens without you. Eric convinced me in 2 hours to throw away roughly about 60% of my Apex code. And he's like, you know what? We should just do all of this in Flow. And I said, okay, let's do it. Right? Because I was curious. I wanted to learn. It made sense. I didn't like how complex all my Apex was, right? Like writing tests are expensive, especially tests that are maintainable. And we ended up doing two versions of the flows. So the I have a version of sync in my head that is like the third version. One of the jokes I like to tell about myself is the third version of anything I do is the money one, right? And so I have to figure out a way to get that out. But Eric was super influential in that. So I definitely want to shout out and recognize him. And then Eric and I reached out to Jordan one day and said, "Hey, we're working on this thing. What do you think?" And Jordan, just in the face of no evidence, said, "Yeah, I want to help. We could do this. We could do this," and ended up just redoing all of my Commerce Cloud code, as well as a lot of the auth provisioning in sync that was originally there, which led to the identification of the customer OAuth flow bug that caused us to do our own JWT implementation. And so I am Oleg, I appreciate everything you said, but like none of this happens without these two guys, right? And my sister from another mister, Krista Madukaitis.
Okay, so I said all the positive stuff. Now I have to be fair, I need also to mention something that I struggled. What I actually struggled with the solution was onboarding. You really have to spend some good amount of time to understand it. It's because, and I guess it's logical if you think that multi-cloud projects, multi-cloud solutions cannot be simple. They are complex. It's hard to do them if you never did them before. So what was difficult for me, because I was not a CRM expert, right, to understand, okay, I understood what is happening in the Commerce Cloud side, but it was hard for me to understand all these flows, all these Apex classes, all these mapping rules. Exactly.
Custom metadata, the custom, yes.
And then when something goes wrong, when I'm trying to install the org, I see the issues, and those issues are from the org, not from the Commerce Cloud side. It was pain for me, actually. I needed help, someone who understands the core. And that was, I guess, it's knowledge requirement, I would say, like prerequisite, that if you guys want to work with these multi-cloud solutions, you need to have you need to have a skill set of one and another product, because it's not one way. It's not also a different way. You need to know both. If you don't have it in one person, involve more people, right? Multiple, who is expert over there and there. So I was able to learn it within the time with help of others. And then what I found, why I was saying all these positive feedbacks, after I just understood how things works, it got super simple. But this time, to get there, to understand how things works, why they were done in this way, how to extend that one, it takes time. So, and I'm not sure if it's, I was trying to, to be objective, but it's hard for me to make a call out. Is it a bad thing? Or it's just the thing that anyway would happen because there is a complexity behind the solution like this?
I think, Peter, I would love your experience with this, because I think, look, writing these projects are, God, I can't tell you how many hours I was spent writing tests, commenting code, trying to make things pristine and predictable. And look, like, but to your point, it's still underdocumented, right? Like once you figured it out, then you can see the elegance, and you could see like why we made certain decisions or how we're leveraging certain declarative technologies. But you have to understand Salesforce as a platform to even know where to look, or to understand that things exist, right? Like custom metadata or duplicate rules, or how, one of the little pieces of magic that we did is, you can circumvent some of the limitations in flow, especially for triggered flows, is if you call an invocable action and within that action you call the flow interview directly, right? So it's like, it's super kung fu-y, right? But it's like, if you don't have awareness of the three things that I just said, like there's no way to know that even exists. I think Oleg, what the part of the plan that we had was we were going to follow up with documentation, but then I chose a career change, right? But Peter, I would love to hear your experience, because like documenting this and curating it at the same time is hard.
The life cycle usually for these like really larger complex stuff for companies, this specific thing, usually the only way that you can actually solve that is user testing, like live user testing. So usually the way that I've done that historically is just put somebody in front of the product that I'm building, the complex thing, and then give them a task to complete. And usually have a video recording them while I'm also recording the screen, so that the developing team can see like, why are they going over there when they're trying to click on that? Because it's usually just there's like a communication gap, because as product development people, we kind of get really deep into like what we're building, and taking that abstraction back out to like somebody like Oleg, who might be actually trying to use it for the first time, will probably approach something completely different than the way that we would imagine that they're using it. So that gap is a lot is really hard to solve. And so it's usually finding a person that you can sit down and say, here's a test that we want to run. Can you perform this basic task? And then just watch them, see if they can complete it, and then see the frustration evolve over time of just them going like, okay, so I'm going to go click on it. And then you're just like, why are they doing that? What's going on? So then you could go through iterations of that stuff. And that could take a long time just on that. Like, even though the concept of what you're trying to develop is the same, it's the how do we connect in a more intuitive and good user experience, like to get them to what they're trying to do. And so that takes time to smooth a lot of stuff out, especially if it's a complex thing like this.
Oleg, this gets back to my point about curiosity, right? This is something I'll say about the Commerce Cloud community. Now, I feel like this is starting to change. But I know when I first got exposed to the Salesforce platform, I think it was like a year into my Salesforce experience. So look, I'm a JavaScript developer, right? I know Node, I know JavaScript, I know front end, I know back end, I know data. And so what's the first thing I'm going to gravitate towards in the Salesforce platform? It's not Flow, it's Apex. I'm going to try and do everything in Apex, right? But then I get, I have to write unit tests. Oh, all right. So how can I skirt test coverage or something like that? I think you have to be very, very curious now, I think, to really succeed as a technology professional, right? Because things move so quickly and customer expectations change so quickly that if it's, like, it was hard 10 years ago or 20 years ago to know everything, right? It's impossible now, right? Like this is why it's like, no, I don't know how to do that. Awesome. Let me learn, or let me understand why that's important. And then I can make decisions, right? Like we have to be really, really curious because we're not always going to get every scenario delivered to us cleanly. I have regrets about that with Sync, because I have empathy for you. Like that whole SI experience I was talking about, like you just recounted that for me. And I can only imagine how frustrating that was, right? How blocking that must have felt until you got through it.
Yeah, but in another hand, what I'm thinking about curiosity, it's like you cannot deliver, let's say, solution, product, let's say something, right, that will solve all your problems. We are changing, like society, all environment, everything changing very, very much. Even in commerce, right? It's changing so much, so rapidly that you will waste your money if you want to build something that will solve all the problems. And at least in my perspective, personal perspective, it's like you need to invest into learning. You need to invest into enablement. You need to learn over the time and iterate. Like, as you said, Peter, you need to iterate like in Agile, right? You need to have your end customer. You need to you need to A/B test with him and see how he behaves and improve over the time. The same with B2C CRM thing. I think with any that complex multi-cloud solution, you cannot create a stone, like everything that solves. it always will be enablement solutions that give you a guidelines, best practices, maybe default, most common scenarios how to solve them. But in the end, when you take it in your customer industry, in your situation, what business you are, you still will have to adapt it. You still will have to adjust it to your business. So what do you think, Abraham? Is it true or not? I mean, you had so much experience with different partners and customers in terms of multi-cloud connections.
Well, look, I think with Sync, what I love about your experience is that you landed on exactly what I was where I was hoping you would land, right? That hey, this is a tool, right? I've got an off mechanism. I've got patterns for how to leverage services. I've got patterns for how to write new services and write tests and expose that on the B2C commerce side as well as the Salesforce platform. I have logging conventions already built in place for me. I have a way to manage field mappings abstractly. So that way I don't have to write any manual code that says map this to this. I can just abstractly define all that, right? Like you're able to see the patterns and the elegance and understand, oh, so I can use these bits now to invoke new services or do different kinds of synchronization and leverage that within the Salesforce platform. And ultimately, that is what we were trying to target. I think it's the profile piece was a really interesting vehicle, and it was necessary. But if you're curious, you'll see these patterns, and hopefully, it gives you superpowers to do some really really cool things.
Thank you, Abraham. I'm with you over here, and I think we had very, very interesting discussion as of today. We touched customer 360. We touched the perspective of developers, technical leads, architects. Talked about multi-cloud strategy, about difference between customer profile and customer view, right? I mean, single one. Challenges with the data and flows, about B2C CRM things. So usually what we do in our podcast, like we are giving our guests a prime time. So Abraham, now is your prime time.
Well, well, look, I want to say I love this community. I am so grateful for the 4.5 years that I spent at Salesforce and all the relationships and friendships that I've been able to develop over time. We just recently participated in an App Exchange demo jam for Dreamforce. Okay. And Oleg, you'll love this story. So I went and searched all of my Salesforce first degree contacts in LinkedIn and just started reaching out to all the people that I knew, just sending them, hey, take a look at this video. Can you vote for us? Follow your conscience, but I like to win. And as an ISV partner, the acclaim that you get from winning these things helps, right? It's marketing, right? It's certainly valuable. It gives you credibility. It generates interest. And the forcing factor of these demo jams is unbelievable, right? Because you like everything gears up to those 3 minutes. And so you've got to like script a demo, plan out your features, extend the product, right? We're in the process of delivering a new product to market called Messaging Studio that's going to expose live agent, digital engagement, and Einstein bots across multiple messaging channels. And so it's been an awesome experience being able to use the demo jam to help mold and shape the product, right? As well as practice, how do we talk about it? And so I must have messaged 200 people today, and I was blown away by how many came back to me and were like, "Oh, I'm so happy! It's great that you reached out. Of course, oh, love the demo and such." We didn't win. Hats off to Capato, right? Super happy for you. Capato is an amazing product that generates tremendous business value. But it just reminded me of how special a company this can be, right? and how wonderful the people are that work there. So like that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing is like if at 1440 we are hiring, right? And so if you want to change the world in a little bit or in a very meaningful way, and work on really exciting, fulfilling, I won't say bleeding edge, but I'll say leading edge products, right? We have a vision to become the #1 global ISV in the world. We need great people. It is a fantastic place to work, value driven. And so, like, if you're curious, just reach out. Would love to talk to you about it. Okay.
Thank you, Abraham. I think it's actually a great idea for our podcast, maybe from time to time, just to invite ISV partners and speak about their proposals, what they have to do for the market. Why I think it's a good one, because in my experience, we had a community solutions, let's say in Commerce Cloud, right? And people just doesn't know about them, all of them. There's so much great stuff. People just doesn't know them. So whoever will listen to us and get, the audience that will be here, they can learn about solutions out there. They can solve their business problems. So thank you, Abraham, for this idea. I guess we will meet you again in some of the other podcasts, but then we will focus not on Customer 360, but about 1440 IO and see what you get there. Thank you very much.
Yeah. No, listen, Oleg, Peter, thank you. This was a blast. I appreciate you setting this up. I appreciate until my daughter went to bed. So thank you for that too.
You're welcome, Abraham.
Yeah, there we go, right? And I see that's never going to go away. I love that. That's just like it's memorialized now. My wife is going to say, "What?"
We're going to tag you as Abraham on the.
There you go. Like it's fine. But listen,
I will cut this one. I will cut this one.
No, it's fine. It's good.
No, don't worry. We never cut anything. We say people in the beginning of the recording that we are going to cut and change something. We never do. We just like, it was amazing discussion. We just skip it.
Like, I love this. And so thank you for inviting me. This was a lot of fun. I will do this again at the drop of a hat. And so, please let me know. All right. Like, hope and health to you guys and your families.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Abraham. Thank you, Peter. You've been on Unofficial. See ya.